Welcome to the TSL podcast. It is May 3rd and it's 9 p.m. Austin time. We are on our TSL online call. We're about to move into the MD Excellence call, which is going to be awesome. But today, what we're going to talk about, which is super important, that literally every guy goes through this at some point, and it is so common and it's seen as this big tragedy and it's blown out of proportion. But what happens when I can't get hard? What happens when I can't get an erection? Super common. Nobody talks about it. Everybody gives the wrong solution for it. And then because it's such an urge filled panic, it causes all this hysteria and freak out. And we jump to all these conclusions about what we do to solve it. And, in the past couple of years, in fact, this has faded out a little bit. I gave a speech on it at the 21 convention, and the speech is not yet published as of the date, May 3rd, 2017. But definitely watch it. There's a webinar that I gave on it as well that's very good. But the speech actually clears a lot of stuff up and bridges all this like addiction as well as propaganda as well as the porn addiction. And we get like really into this stuff and all of the things that have been huge influences in my life, which are sex, drugs, and porn, which we talk about it big time. So anyway, that all being said, let's describe actually what inspired this call. So there's a guy, he's kind of new in the dating scene. He hasn't been dating a lot. And he met a girl. It's the first, like successful thing. He's like getting involved in, men's development and seduction and all this different stuff. And he meets a girl, and he meets her on, whatever, let's say on the weekend, and goes on a date with her 2 days later. And lo and behold, she's naked in his bedroom. One thing led to another. He didn't even need to do much. He didn't even need any of these like crazy skills of escalation. And this is something that, guys, if you're working on your dating life, if you can get a date, oh man, that puts you in just such a good position to just let things unfold. And if you can get a kiss, then it unfolds even easier. And that's kind of what happened to him. And he's like, man, I pretty much got laid, Steve, but then it didn't work. And actually his headspace was pretty good about it. A lot of guys, anytime this happened to me, oh man, feel terrible. For me, it didn't happen until I was much older. But one of the things is that it was something that, God, dude, it's a terrible feeling. And we all know what that's like, or if we've been there, is that you feel powerless. I mean, that's what impotence is. You feel that you're less of a man. The first thing you want to do is you want to go and see if it works. You want to go masturbate. You want to go find another girl. You want to go have an experience where you're functioning again to see if you're broken for the rest of your life. Man, but the best thing that you could do in that time is get to a men's group that's being honest. And sadly, so many guys have come to TSL. I mean, I shit you not, we had clients in 2009 that were hiring us for this, and they had hired a ton of people before. And man, our success rate is very high with it because it all comes back to normalizing sex. And if you can get it up to porn, if you can get it up to masturbation or self-stimulation, but you can't with another person, then there's something emotional and psychological and habitual that we can work out to get you there. Now, the answer isn't stopping watching porn. The answer isn't demonizing anything. You can stop that. You can chill with it. You can, relax those different things. You can change your beliefs. But what I'm saying is from what we've done over and over again, and one of the things I talk about in my 21 convention speech is that 8 out of 10 guys who are under the age of 26, I believe, have a problem with this, have suffered from some form of erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, inability to ejaculate, inability to maintain an erection, or just get it up in general. That, man, it's so common. The worst thing you can do is see yourself as different, which is what everybody does. Man, it's terrible. That's like, that is the most harmful thing. It's not porn. It's not, having some weird sexual experience when you're a kid, or maybe that might be, but it's thinking that you're different and thinking that you're unique and it's impossible for you to get better. Man, do yourself a favor. Join our groups. They're free. Austin Men's Development, free. But I'm actually doing a live stream on this on Austin Men's Development. But also, what you should do is you should get into our groups where we talk and we're open, like on calls like this. Like the MD Excellence call is going to be open in about 20 minutes. And 20 minutes is going to be a flood of guys that can talk about stuff like this and work through it. And it's actually an interesting thing. Some guy came to me it was during our workshop, and he came to me. He's been a member of our group since 2013, and he hugged me and he said, dude, man, you did it. You always have talked about this. You've always talked about having a group that is just a place where guys can come and feel good about it. And he's a major contributor to the group, but he had a shitty day there that day, and he got a shit ton of feedback and a shit ton of support. And he goes, dude, I'm an established man. I have a lot of good things in my life. I wasn't having a good day, and just talking to some of the guys did not solve my problems. It did not solve my problems going through, the intense emotional time that I'm going through, but it allowed me to come back to myself, and that is invaluable, and it's the best thing. And it's so sad that people don't see this, and you can't sell it as this quick fix, but it's literally the most valuable thing that I've had in my life in terms of dating, sex, my business, my focusing on who I am and purpose and all these different things that, you can't put a price tag on it. So anyway, guys, get with the wisdom, right? And that's what we're doing here, man. It's a huge, huge thing. So doors open for that. But that all being said, why does this happen? And what do we do and how do we solve it? And this was a huge discussion that I had with this gentleman who was talking with me about it, because this happens for all sorts of different reasons. And you cannot put your fingerprint, you cannot understand why this happens until you actually get into it, until you get sexual, until you understand that, because there's so many different things. There could be anxiety, there could be poor beliefs, there could be detachments, yes, that are in your brain about, how different things connect. And let's just talk about that, because I referenced a lot of the modern neuroscientists that have to do with addiction, that are studying addiction in the brain, that are like the leading dudes for my speech. And every single one of those guys that are coming up with the whole thing of the neural pathways, they all say this is theory. And we are like, just to paraphrase it, I'm going to take Isaac Newton's quote, that we are like kids playing on a beach with seashells in front of a massive ocean. We don't know. We assume a lot. And to actually say that we know an absolute or anywhere close to that would be a total bastardization of what we're saying, of what we're putting out there. But what we are saying is that it can move forward, and we do think we can find some solution from this. So, when we really talk about the neural pathways, let's blame porn. Oh, the neural pathways, let's blame, misogyny. Oh, the neural pathways, let's, calm down men's sex drive, or demonize, how men are supposed to be, and that the overly aggressive nature, or that I'm fucked up, or that somehow uniquely I had a bad childhood. And really where we see the biggest problems with erectile dysfunction that sustains. So everybody goes through a period where it's going to happen for a couple years, where we have premature ejaculation, inability to ejaculate, we can't get it up, all those different things. And they happen sporadically. It's going to happen for a period of your life. And it will re-happen when your testosterone lowers as well. So the deal is that when we experience those things, we got to realize of how normal that is. That is such a man, it's a natural phenomenon. Okay. When it sustains, those people usually had sexual trauma in their childhood, an oppressive religious upbringing, all sorts of confusion that had happened in their life, or that for some reason their identities associated with sex were broken or disjointed throughout their childhood, adolescence, or they're coming to age of maturity. So that's important. And if you are one of those guys, it doesn't mean you're screwed. It means you just have to take another path, okay? It doesn't mean that you're done for. It never means that you're done for. So what we believe here at The Sexual Life, and sorry that this has taken me, 8+ minutes to get into, is that if the number one thing that will solve your sexual problems is that you can get sexual. And let's not make this too complicated, nor too simple, because that doesn't just mean that you need to go out and have sex. It doesn't mean that you just need to, I don't know, go out and get your dick wet with somebody. That means that you need to learn your sexuality. And what that also means is that you don't need to overcomplicate it and think that it needs to be this, this, and that, because right now, if you're not sexual, if you're running into a lot of dysfunction or disorder with your sex life, you probably don't know sex. And the best thing that you can do is to get sexual. In fact, to start off, why not just get your dick wet? Or why not just get laid? But see, the thing is we need to learn a language of sex. And so many of us are trying to speak and interpret a language of sex, let alone sexual dysfunction, let alone, issues and insecurities that we have with sex, without speaking its language. And so what you need for that is you need long-term sexual behavior with, but most likely, now this isn't always the case, but with multiple partners, That will be extremely beneficial to start realizing, like, oh, this happens here, because it takes away a lot of the anxiety. It takes away a lot of the bullshit and the different beliefs that we have associated with it. And just think about this, is that, let's say we're learning a new game. Let's say we're doing jujitsu. Man, I get in my head with jujitsu all the time, man. I can't win. I can't win. I can't win. I'm making the same mistakes. And if I have the same training partner the whole time, or if I'm just doing drills, or if I'm, going to go fight in a tournament, but I'm not actually fighting tournament style with anybody and I'm just drilling and then I wonder why I keep losing, I am not putting myself in a position where I speak the language of real-time fighting or wrestling. I am not in that mode. Much like if you're going to be a salesman, you can learn about it all day long in the classroom, but if you're not taking the action and the experience of it, then you're not doing it. Same with being social. Man, if you can understand the theory, this happens all the time, you can get it, man. I don't care if maybe you're an engineer and you did that route in college or whatever, but if you are not actually talking to people, you will not understand the language of how people interact. And it's so dependent upon that. What is so awesome and super, super important is that if you are doing that sexually, then you start to learn the language of it. And you start to realize very quickly, if you're having more sex and over a long period of time, and you do have some variety of people, you realize sometimes these things happen where you come really quick. Sometimes they happen and you don't come for a long time. Sometimes a girl just loves you and falls in love with your dick. Sometimes she gets really angry. In fact, this is an interesting thing that happened, because he was saying, he's like, man, I hooked up with this girl and I actually talked to her about it, because I told him, he said he'd had this issue before we had started working together and doing anything. And he said, man, I've had some issues with it. I said, man, look, and he remembered this. Is great, because in that time you can't remember stuff. But I said, look, just tell her, like, look, these things happen, especially if I don't know the person, I can feel uncomfortable. And then I feel bad because you feel bad. And, it's just a thing where I just get nervous, and I'm nervous right now talking to you. But if we can actually interact and I can feel comfortable, it'll be a lot easier. She actually said to him, there's actually more to say than that, but she actually told him, she said, hey, so man, this actually happened to me before, and I thought there was a problem with me, because that's actually what happens. If you can't come or you can't get an erection, like, the woman will think it's her fault. And if you basically, check this out. If the pussy gets wet and you let it get dry, you go to hell as a man. She will not want to talk to you. So if the pussy gets wet and basically you don't take any action, or she doesn't see you come, she doesn't have the opportunity to give you an orgasm, man, she'll feel bad. Her femininity will be like robbed of her. You don't want to do that. Terrible thing, right? Terrible, right? So that all being said, when he's saying this to her, she actually opened up and she was like, hey, look, it's cool. I'm glad you told me. Now she still goes away and feels, shitty. It's not good. But it definitely gives a different dimension to him re-engaging to it. And he actually said, he's like, I don't want to be this girl's boyfriend or whatever. But, I don't know. So I don't know if I should talk to her. I was like, no, man, the best thing you can do for yourself is get laid, because it's going to teach you something. It's going to teach you that then if you do this, when she does make your dick come and she does make it hard, it's going to be one of the greatest gifts in the world. So think about this. I was saying, like, long period of sex, multiple partners. That's a good mix. And again, if you're not a multiple partner guy, you don't need to be a multiple partner guy. And that could be done in any way, shape, or form. That could be one girlfriend for 2 months, another girlfriend for 2 months, or you could be dating multiple people at the same time, whatever. But like, that variety is good. Check out how long this would take if we didn't have a community, if we didn't have people talking about this, and we were just trying to figure it out on our own, like I did. It takes fucking forever, because, you go to a situation, let's say you can't get it up, the girl feels bad. You're like, oh, fuck, man, she feels bad. I feel bad. Shit, this is bullshit. This is private. I can't talk to anybody about it. Okay, whatever. We're just not going to talk anymore. And you cut that off. You don't realize that maybe you have another opportunity. You don't realize that maybe this isn't a big deal. Maybe it happens a second time with her, and then no, it's her. I'm like, this girl's a curse. She's a black eye. And that's how a lot of women think about guys. And they cut it off. What happens when you cut somebody off? You have to make up a story about him. We start going like, oh man, she's a bitch because of whatever, blah, 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 blah. And girls and guys do this all, and it just becomes totally fucking stupid. So the thing is we need long-term sexual activity, and this will happen, and we got to realize it's normal. Once again, for about 2 years of your life of being sexually active, it may come up a lot, but after a while, after it consistently, and we always say this, after like within 10 times in a short period of time, so like within, let's say, 10 sexual experiences within a month, and this could be for any behavioral change, but let's just say with sex, that you do perform well, even though you tried 20 times, you'll start to get a grip on it. So that would be something that you do with your girlfriend. But even with, like, let's say, learning and internalizing a skill of, I don't know, approaching and building rapport. So you approach somebody and you build rapport. It's something that seems so impossible. It's wrapped up in all this different anxiety, and it still might get wrapped up in anxiety the next time you try it. But if you do it 10 times, even though you failed 10 other times, but in the period of a month, you're going to have just so much more of a point of reference to it all. You're going to have so much more of a connection to it all. You're going to have an ease of anxiety. You're going to realize it works. You're not going to need a technique to make it work. You're going to be able to do it and perform it. That's where we need to get with sexuality. We need to speak its language. And this is the other thing. Actually, there were a couple things I told them. Number one, if you want to have good sex, you want to see a pattern of escalation that kicks ass, Pierre Woodman. Google it. You can find him. He's a pornographer. He's amazing. He did stuff in the 90s and in the thousands. And he basically would tell these girls in Eastern Europe, like, you can do this porn. It's never going to be seen because it's only for the U.S. And then the internet came along and broadcasted it everywhere. But he launched a lot of different porn stars. He interviews them and all that sort of stuff. It's like the early casting, whatever stuff. But his escalation is great. And what I was telling the guy, I'm like, so let's say my dick doesn't work. Let's say my dick doesn't work. I can't get up. Can't get it up. Man, part of being a sexual man is wanting that woman, wanting to please her, wanting to give her something great. That is huge, right? It's huge. So think about this. I want to give her pleasure when I can't give her pleasure, or when it's not reciprocated. And man, let me tell you, if she doesn't make my dick come, it's gonna make her feel bad. Like she's not gonna like it. She's gonna walk away from that not so good. But if I can blow her mind sexually, it's key. And blowing somebody's mind sexually isn't necessarily a technique; it's a process. And if you watch about like 5 or 6 Pierre Woodman videos, you'll get this because he does the same thing every time. He eats their pussy. They get to a certain point in the pussy eating, and then they suck his dick. They get to a certain point with that. And they might say, I don't want you to come in my mouth, but then he comes in their mouth. Because they get to a certain point of arousal. And then he gets to a certain point where he fucks them. And I used to, like, man, I'm so crazy. I talk about not getting technical, but I'd be like, man, I don't pound like that guy. When I'm pounding hard, because I've given some good sex, and when I'm like pound, 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 it's for like 10 seconds or something. We talk about this shit in the Golden Dick videos and those sexual videos where we learn how to hold and handle and fucking, say the right things or whatever. But I don't do it that long. So I was like, how long does he do it? And there were a couple times when I watched where I timed it. It was like 15 to 20 seconds. I'm like, man, that's a lot of physical exertion. But then he relaxes and he's like, oh, and this is a fucking French guy, man. He's like, oh, you're beautiful, blah, 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 slaps their tits or whatever. But it's great to see that process, because the whole process that he does is dependent upon the state they get in. He eats their pussy till they get to a certain state. Some girls that takes 2 minutes, some girls that takes 5 minutes, some girls that takes 10. But then they get overwhelmed. But he allows them to get into it. Okay, it's not this like pickup shit where it's just like, do it. Man, those guys, they're the worst. God, man, I fucked so many chicks while another dude was fucking next to me, and they're just like, it's like, God, let me just fuck her too. Do her a fucking favor and make her not hate, man. God, there's so much bad sex out there. Anyway, but you see them go through this process. And you see them go through this process, and he escalates beyond that. So the thing is, if you can't get it up, man, that's an excellent, excellent process to work off of. It's great information, man. It's awesome, man. Another reason to watch porn. Now, one of the things that was funny is one of my close friends, Jason Savage, he said, he told me once, he said, man, one of the best things any guy can do if he's not sexual is to get sexual as quick as possible. And this is one of those things, too, that I see especially with pickup guys, that the longer they stay in the scene, the more they get fucked up, especially coaches. And if they go through a time where they're not sexually active, because you get kind of pissed off at it. It's like your biggest talent and your worst, handicap. Because if you don't have to work for something and you can always get it, it won't teach you how to work for anything else. And relationships take a lot of stuff. So if you can always get laid, if you can always get a girl to fall in love with you, then your skills of building intimacy or connection or whatever, all these different things don't really get respected. So you don't learn the value of hard work. And then because of that, you dogpile, you plateau your life, you build a shelf, and you collapse. And with your sex and sexuality or whatever it is that you're good at, you don't need to work at any other things. So the thing is that when it comes down to things like sex, like a lot of pickup guys step away from it. And man, that's when they get the most insane, the most defining, and the most fucked up, and the most in their head. So, long story short to all this, guys. Number one, join a group. Join our group. Talk about this stuff. It's totally normal. Everybody has it happen to them. Most people under the age of 26 have it happen to them long term. The porn propaganda is bullshit. First off, have you seen those guys? The guy that did like, this is your brain on porn, or whichever, everything you know about sex is wrong, or porn, or whatever the fuck it is. Dude, goddamn, man. Jesus, everything you know about addiction is wrong. That's that motherfucker. God, what a fucking misinformation sack of shit that guy put out there. God. But everything you know about porn, man, I'm mixing it up. But this is your brain on porn. You like, look at that guy. Go back and watch that YouTube video that everybody references in their fucking douchey ass blog, and their bullshit, and they talk about the neural pathways, and then go read actually what Carl Hart, or what man, damn it, what is his name? Shit, I fucking forgot his name. But the biology of desire guy, Mark. But amazing book on addiction. But they all say we don't know. They all say we assume a lot and we're learning more. And to just say, and to actually in the biology of desire, damn it. Oh, I forget his name. But anyway, when he describes the complexity of what's going on in the brain, it's insane. It's not a neural pathway. It is neural pathways that are an orchestration that it wouldn't just be, there's so much going on that it couldn't just be one thing. It's that so many things are going on that one thing gets really, really wound up in it. Anyway, read the book. A lot better than me explaining it. But you watch that guy and just look at the claim at the end of This Is Your Brain on Porn. Just look at the claim. A man who was addicted to porn, who watched it for X amount of days, has social anxiety, can't meet women, objectifies women, and has the wrong look of blah, 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 of what they are. And then he goes on their regimen of whatever it is, 100 days of not watching porn. And like I was saying on the call earlier, I forget what it is, but let's just say he says it's 10 years. He goes 10 years of not watching porn, which is not the case. So that's an exaggeration. But he goes for this X amount of time, and it's like, and then what happens? The guy can meet people. He can go out and talk to people. He has a girlfriend. He can maintain erections, and everything's good. Dude, we know from I work in this, but that does not happen. That is such a fucking lie. And it's just broadcasted out there, and people are like, God, man, it's just such shit. Just imagine if you're that dude, you just tried to fuck a chick in a bed or in a car or whatever, and your dick didn't work. You feel all bad. You Google it, and this fucking asshole comes up on his TED Talk, and you're like, man, this is making sense. Because it does make sense. And I break down a lot of the bullshit of that in the webinar and in the 21 Convention speech. But like, what shit? That's not how it works. How it works is you stop making it a big deal. You stop exaggerating it in your mind. You start getting in normal sexual situations. We'll help you get there. You start talking about it with people and other people who are honest about it. And man, it levels out. And then you start having some good experiences as well as having those bad experiences. And they start to, your body was made to do it. Your mind was made to do it. And once you are sexually active, I'm not going to say there aren't going to be problems, but they're not going to be those same problems. And you create problems in the language that you're supposed to be speaking, not being asexual, not being not sexual, not coming up with all the excuses and reasons and why you aren't being sexual, but being sexually active. All the people that cite the biggest problems about what's wrong with the world, what's wrong with socializing, what's wrong with connection, what's wrong with interacting with people, are all people who sit inside and fucking spend way too much time online as their interaction rather than really talking to people. And the same goes for sex. You got to get out there. You got to get out there and fuck. You got to get out there and talk to people. You got to start seeing it as normal and not some big deal, where you got to do it on both sides of it, on the positive and the negative. It's the most normal expression, born to be thing. you can do.